welcome back to Salty TV. We are so grateful for your reception so far. The likes, the comments, the shares, please keep it up. We beg.
Preview. We have here with us an honorable guest. You would love him. I would like him to introduce himself.
My name is Ebo Texan. Yeah, and I've been in youth ministry for 10 years. Yeah, and I'm also a worshiper. I'm into dance, drama, and music. I sing too.
Okay.
And I'm sure before the program ends, you give us one song.
Okay. It depends. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, let's see.
Anyway, yeah. Also with my career, I'm a geomatic engineer.
Okay.
So alongside doing the things of God, man has to eat. So I've tried to also build a career over there, maybe spanning a period of 5 years. So
Okay.
so that's the little I can share about.
Okay. Last week we spoke about stepping out, and this time we're also about to speak about stepping out. But we're taking it a step further. Yeah. So we should take us deeper into the stepping out.
Would like to know some of the misconceptions about stepping out.
Okay, the thing is, normally when it comes to stepping out, the main problem is with the person who has to do the stepping out, where a lot of the negative thoughts, it's in your mind. What do people think about me? If I do this, are people going to find a problem with it? So you realize that it's mostly to do with your mind. The second thing is also where you grew up or how your upbringing was. Yeah. So those are the main two things that form the misconceptions that we think about. So
Yeah, that's true. Because in as much as people can put you down, it's up to you to be put down.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week when we spoke about the fact that some of us said our parents, our cousins helped us through the process. So is it very necessary to have a system, or we should just focus on the fact that it's about us?
in as much as it's about us or you, you need a system, a support system, because the journey is not an easy one, where you might have encounters with different obstacles. And during these different points, that's when you need someone to hold you. The first point is God. Then the second one is who you surround yourself with. When you look at the case of someone like Gideon, he didn't have friends that were like a system for him. His system was God, where even before he came out, God had to send an angel to speak to him. And even with the encounter with the angel, he asked for different signs. And it's through that, that's what built his confidence. So he could rely on God. He knew that whatever he needed, God would provide for him. Then second instance, when I talk about friends, someone like David, you realize through scripture that his family wasn't really there for him. He was sort of the banished child, where he always had to be outside. Even when it was time for his blessing, for him to be shown to the world, they still had to go and get him from outside. But then you realize that when he became king, he surrounded himself with a formidable team. People that he could trust. People that would advise him on the things of life. He didn't just leave it there. He had a prophet to also go with him so that he could hear the voice of God. Even though he was someone who could clearly hear God's voice. But he needed a second person who could also hear. Then, when it got to war, he had someone that he could trust. Because at the end of the day, he was a king. He needed to win victories and battles. It's not just about those who were going to advise him, but then someone that he knew that when he wasn't there, the person could hold the fort for him. So he had about 5 people around him that whenever something went wrong, even though he would consult God, he would speak to them to also know their mind. So, like I said, the two things is either you are going solely on God, or then you're going to put godly people around you. They might or might not be your family, but then people that you can trust and you know that can give you sound counsel.
So people say, oh, it's not everyone who goes through a lot of stress when it comes to stepping out, but is it real that everyone, so far as you want to step out, you go through some obstacles?
Well, obstacles, it depends. They might be big or small. The moment you want to step out, that means that there's a system that you find yourself in. And you either want to come out of it or make it better. Those are the two things. And the moment you decide to take such a step, it means that there's always going to be an opposition. So it might be people who do not want what you want to work out. Or like they say, human beings are a bit afraid of change.
Yeah.
So the moment you want to bring something new in, you might have tried and tested it. And you know this is going to work. But then the people that you are with, if they are used to a certain system, then it's going to be a problem for them. So it might be big or small, depending on what you want to do and what your purpose or your goal is, what you are stepping out from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of these setbacks that you face and you're stepping out
Likely to face.
One, the first thing I'll say is the main obstacle is the mindset. Your mindset and the people that you are working with.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I might be a timid person, or I might be someone that is afraid to speak out. Then I get into a situation where maybe a purpose has been revealed to me. My purpose, be it a temporal one or a permanent one, has been revealed to me. Then now I have to speak up. Mind you, I'm a timid person. I have to battle with myself. Because once you are somebody who is timid, you become afraid of whatever you want to do because you're afraid, will it work or will it not work? The people that I'm going to talk against, are they going to fight with me or are they going to agree? All those things eat up your mind. And if you don't take care, you might not cross that barrier. And that's the first step. The second one, the people that you are with. For instance, you've got a new idea. You're working in a company. You realize that you have a new idea that might change the face of marketing for that company. But then those in charge of it are not really up to date with such things. Then you have a problem. The first one is, if I go and tell them, will it work? If it doesn't work, am I going to bear the brunt of all of them?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So your mindset can really put you down. Yeah, then, of course, there might be physical problems, maybe things to do with finance and all those things. So even before you get to the other physical problems, you need to win the battle with your mind. Because the moment you win the battle with your mind, about 70% of the work is done.
That's true.
Do you have any life experience? Do you have any life experience, anything that required you to step out? I mean, battle your mind, battle with your mind, battle with what others were going to say about you and the steps you're about to take. Do you have any situation like that?
Okay. One that easily comes to mind is with my church.
Okay.
I grew up in a Baptist church. And sometimes for us, I mentioned earlier on that I'm a dancer, I act, and I do a whole lot of youth activities. There's a system that feels like you should be at a certain age before you become effective in church. And I'm sure a lot of other churches also face that problem, where the thing is, you are too young. how much of experience do you have in life
That's
that
true.
you think that
You can do
this is going to work. Do you get it? And I said I started youth ministry about 10 years ago. So maybe 11, 12 years ago, I was a 17-year-old boy. And I realized that there was more I could do for my church. And there was a problem where we had the youth leaving to other churches because they felt it was more hip over there. So I looked at the situation and I was like, how do we rectify this thing? I talked to a few other people. They were like, I mean, you don't need to conform or compromise. That's what they think youth ministry is, trying to compromise with the world to keep people in the church. But you see, as a youth, you're full of energy.
Yeah.
And you want to be actively involved in something that will let you cherish where you are or stay where you are. So there was a whole lot of opposition there. He feels he's gifted, so he wants a stage to shine. But that wasn't the case. What I realized was that I visited a couple of churches and I realized that they were doing a whole lot of things that still kept Christ relevant. But then the youth were enjoying what they were doing. They found a sense of purpose in what they were doing. Church became home. Yeah. So I looked at it, I was like, how do I make church home for all these other ones? I can't do it on my own. How do I sell the idea to my friends? Because I realized that the moment I go, it's a one-man thing. So you're obviously going to be outnumbered. So why not sell the idea to some friends? Then they also got on board. Then now we had a team. So then we went to approach them. Tried to introduce a few things. Luckily for us, over the years, we saw an increase in the number in the youth ministry. We saw people who even left and came back. Yeah, because they realized that, okay, I've always wanted to be here. If I'm going to find a sense of purpose, if I'm going to be useful, then why not stay at home? Because this is home. Do you get what I'm saying? So, especially with trying to infuse modern ways and technology into what we do, people who are not used to it think that we are trying to dilute the system. We are trying to make it carnal.
Yeah.
But then you realize that a lot of people want to do things that they can relate to. If you are not going to go through the hard process of making sure that people are going to relate to whatever that they are doing, then you're going to lose them. In today's age, we get easily distracted by a whole lot of things. So if I don't have the passion to do what I'm doing, then I'm going to lose focus. So it was a bit of a head-off, but then we were able to jump over it. And I can say that I've got a lot of people who have taken ministry seriously, realize that, look, you can have a good life and still dedicate your life to God.
Yeah, with the age factor, it's really an obstacle because sometimes we are taking a step. Somebody might tell you, you're too old for this or you're too young for this. I remember at church, I started teaching the Sunday school in primary, and some of the teachers and some people were like, what do you know about the Bible? They are going to teach other children. They're like, how can a child teach a child? Yes, but I don't know if they forgot Jesus was at the temple at the age of 12. But, well, they were telling me I'm too young. I should finish SS before I can come and teach. So I gave up and I left. Then another teacher came to call me back that the kids seem to love you. So come back. So that's the thing. Mostly age can be an obstacle. It's either you're too old or you're too young. But if you know what you're doing and then you find purpose in what you're doing, enjoying it, I think you should just go for it.
Preview. So, Abel, please, how do we sustain the process of stepping out? How do we sustain the whole thing?
Sustenance. You can only sustain something that when I say something that you know, for instance, it's like someone going to medical school. You go through all the exams, all the stress, the sleepless nights, and all that. Then now you become a doctor. What gets you going is the knowledge that you've acquired and the identity that you have come to realize. You know that whatever you've learned forms a basis for whatever obstacle that you're going to face. So you need to know your purpose in order to sustain it. Sometimes it takes a short while. Sometimes it takes a stretch of years for you to come to the entirety of what your purpose is. It took me some time to discover what mine was. I'm sure you asked what's your purpose. Yeah. For me, I discovered that I'm a foundation builder. That is what I do. So I help people discover who they are, give them the training they need, the encouragement they need to discover who they are. Then they can go on with what they do. So for someone like me, if people come into my way or I have an encounter with people, be it people who are older than me or younger than me, when they become greater than me, it doesn't become a problem. I don't have a problem with ego. Why am I saying this? Because I know what my purpose is. My purpose is to be a foundation builder, to help you discover who you are. And normally, you see, nobody knows what effort goes into a foundation except the engineer and the mason and the other laborers who are actually doing the work down there. But then everybody sees a nice building. Wow, I want to live in a home like that. But how did it become a home like that? A lot of effort was put in the foundation. So I'm able to sustain my purpose because I know what it is. So when people behave in a certain way, when you don't even give me credit for what influence I had in your life, it doesn't become a problem. Because, but my thing was, look, I've discovered this person. God says that he's the potter, he molds him. He says, Ebo, I want you to help me mold this person. When we mold the person, whatever the person does with their final state, it gives glory to God. Not for people to say, oh, this person walked with Ebo, or this person had an encounter with Ebo. No, I actually don't want that. All the glory should go to God. So what keeps me going, what has kept me going down the years, is knowing who I am and what my purpose is. So the moment you know that, it's very hard for you to lose focus. You realize that a lot of people do a certain thing, then they leave it. They do a certain thing, then they leave it, because they don't really know who they are. Then they have problems with what people think of them or what they are doing. But then if you have a goal, you have a purpose, you know what it is, no matter the storms of life that blow your way, you still sail through. Because you look at it and you laugh. You're like, you don't know what I'm doing. Just like you go to an artist and you're like, it looks like you're making a mistake over here. Or this part doesn't look too nice. You just laugh. Because he has the final picture in his mind. So the process that he goes through, whether he has to rub up some paint or whether he has to mix some colors or wait a bit for a few days before he continues what he's doing, it's no problem for him because he knows what the final goal is. So in order for you to sustain your purpose, or even when you've stepped out, how do I keep walking? How do I keep standing on my feet? It's because I know who I am, my identity, and I know what I'm supposed to do. These two things. If you have these two things on your mind, it makes it a bit easier. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Wow. So it's basically to sustain, you need to know who you are and know what you're about.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so sometimes, is it possible that somebody would know who they are and still miss it and not get to their destination?
Yes, it's very possible.
Because some people will tell you, I want to do this. They have so much enthusiasm with what they want to do. Then all of a sudden they realize they didn't get anywhere with it.
They got distracted.
Yes.
They looked back.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think that you really have to keep the focus, like you're saying. If you really know who you are, what you want to do, what the goal and the focus is, then looking back shouldn't be an option because you've not gotten there yet. Why did you look back?
I know, but then the process before you get to the big picture, sometimes you can get tired.
Yeah, that's true.
You can feel like, is there even a big picture?
Sometimes I even like actual what?
So
if I know what happened,
I won't die.
Nothing will happen.
I come and keep myself. So yeah, what do you say to people like that who get to a stage, they knew that yes, I have a nice voice, I can do this, but they keep singing, they keep doing it over and over again, and they're not getting anywhere, and they're like, let me stop and go and do something because maybe this is not my thing.
First question I'll ask such a person: are you listening to God? Because God always has something to say, no matter the circumstance or the situation that you find yourself in. For instance, when I finished my undergrad and I was doing my service, I decided to apply for schools so that I can do my master's. Then I got the admission into a school in the UK, in Scotland. Then I came to ask myself, hey boy, I've been doing this ministry thing for all this while. You're going to spend about 3 years in a new land. A land where it's known that they don't really do these Christian stuff, and it's going to be difficult for you. What are you going to do? It was something that was really bothering me because I did some reading. I realized that in Scotland, a lot of them were Catholics. So I was like, Catholic Church, for the kind of ministry that I have, it's going to be really hard for me. But what did I do? Sat on my bed, I was thinking about it. Then I was like, look, you can't really change the situation. What you can do is pray. So I prayed to God and I asked him, Father, I know this is the situation I find myself in. I want to be a better person in terms of my career. So I want to go to school. But at the same time, I don't want to lose the ministry that I have. Because if I'm going to spend about 2 to 3 years, I don't want to have that gap. Then when I come back, where am I going to start from again? So I prayed. And funny enough, whatever he told me, a couple of friends that I have, who also have the prophetic gift on them, they came and they also confirmed the same thing. So I was like, okay, wow. Then I got there. And I looked at the situation around. I was like, okay, now I'm here. How is it going to happen? But then a few months down the line, I realized that the man of God that I met and the church that I found myself in, it was what a prophet friend of mine said some months back and what God had confirmed to me. Then, funny enough, I got into the church and realized that they didn't have a youth ministry.
Wow.
I said, yes.
This be the foundation.
This is where I have to be.
Wow.
And by God's grace, the man of God was somebody who, or let me say, is someone who really gives the youth a chance to do what they have to do. He spoke to me and I also spoke to him. I was like, this is what I want to do. I realized that you have this gap in your church. But then in 5 years' time, you're going to need people to fill in certain positions. If you don't train them now, it's going to be a problem. Then he said, hey, well, look, the youth ministry that you want to do, the people I have here are ranging between the ages of 9 and 17. I'm like, look, it's not a problem. Let's get them started. The moment they get to the ages of 13, 14, 15, they are going to learn a whole lot, which if there was no ministry, they wouldn't have learned. Then they get to the teenage years, and you know how it is to be a teenager, where a whole lot of things are in your mind. You're also exposed to a whole lot of things. But if you don't have the grounding to stay in church, then you wouldn't want to stay in church. And funny enough, all the kids like the idea that, okay, we want to have our own class and do what we want to do.
Yeah.
We learned Bible stories. By God's grace, the first year we got about 13 of them baptized. And I wouldn't lie, it was one of the happiest days of my life. At least I was like, okay, we could do this. And to date, it's been about a year since I came back. To date, we formed thanks to WhatsApp, we formed a group. And at least I can follow what they are doing. And you realize that they've taken a step forward. These teenagers are now leading praise sessions, worship sessions. They are doing choreographies. They're even doing bake sales so that they can get their friends coming in. So they can also talk to them. So if I also decided to sit down, I found myself here.
There's nothing I can do.
There wouldn't have been something like that for it. Even to the extent that when the main church was going for evangelism, they're like, oh, Uncle, we want to go with you. And all that. We get them into town. We learn choreographies. We go to the city center. We dance. We speak to people. And I get a joy over there. Maybe, who knows, 10 years down the line, one of them might become a pastor. One of the ladies might become someone who is pushing the vision for women to become empowered. Not just in the world, but then Christian women who are becoming empowered. Sometime down the line, I'll look at it and say, I thank God I listened. So when you find yourself in a situation, first thing is to go back to the basics. Ask God, Father, what is happening? What do I do? And trust me, He will always speak. If it's not going to be direct, He's going to send someone to speak to you. So if you want to sustain it, if you want to stand against the storms of life, just like Jesus said, peace be still. You need to hear the voice of God. That's what gives you the assurance to carry on with whatever He has placed in you. Yeah.
Well, that's true, but I want to I want you to talk to someone who has heard the voice of God but still wants to give up. Because even Christ at a point said, Father, what have thou forsaken me? So sometimes in as much as you know what you're getting to, you get weary, you get fed up.
Do you know why you get fed up?
Why?
Because of expectations. Your expectations. Because, for instance, I'm a singer. My expectation might be, if I lead a worship session, I want people to connect so much to God where they will be in the spirit. Maybe a couple of people falling, someone screaming at the back. Then I can also go home and say, today the worship session was just powerful. Or I'll lead a praise session and everybody would dance. Then I go home with a fulfillment. You see, that was my expectation. You want to do something. God has placed a burden on your heart. He's giving you a sense of calling. But then, as human as you are, you have your expectations from what you are doing. It is when you are relying on your expectations, that is when you create room for failure. Because God says that I want to do it this way, and I know the kind of results that I want. Just like the case of Jonah. You know what he told God? He said, I know you. You're a loving God. You're a forgiving God. When I get there, you will change your mind. The people will cry to you for forgiveness, and you will change your mind. You get it? Sometimes, even with our expectations, we know that is not God's expectation.
Yeah, that's true.
But then, we, as human as we are, want that sense of fulfillment from what we are doing. So we place a certain kind of expectation on what we are doing. The moment you place that kind of expectation on it, there's bound to be failure or success. And when you fail at meeting that expectation, that is when you want to give up. But then, if the focus is, this is what God has to do, or this is what God wants, then you realize that if the storms of life come, when it gets difficult, you decide that, look, I'm doing this for God. I put aside my expectations. That can carry you through.
Wow, that was very enlightening. So, I hope you all learned something from this. So, we would like you to say your final words, then we can end this.
Okay. What I'd like to say is, no matter who you are, where you're from, whatever obstacles that you face in life, realize that God has a purpose and a plan for you. And until you are able to discover this purpose, maybe you might not find a sense of fulfillment in life. But then no matter how long it takes, or how hard or tough the process might be, always realize that there's an end to it. There's an end goal. And God has that end goal. If only you would listen to the voice of God, you are going to achieve that purpose. God is going to be happy. And you are going to be happy.
Wow. Thank you so much. We hope you all learned a lot, because we did. And you are encouraged about this episode. Okay, so we want to bring this to an end. We hope you stay tuned and watch next month's episode. God bless you.
Bye.